The Rogue and the Runaway, A Space Adventure Part 1. The Outpost at the Edge of Nowhere. The Rusty Comet wasn't the worst dive bar in the outer reaches, but it was certainly trying its hardest to claim the title. Located on Station Oblivion, a floating heap of corroded metal that had been declared structurally questionable by 3 different space agencies, the establishment catered to the kind of clientele who appreciated that their drinks came with a side of plausible deniability. Captain Jax Corvino sat at the bar, nursing something that claimed to be whiskey but tasted more like rocket fuel filtered through a sock. She was a woman of indeterminate age, somewhere between 30 and I've seen some things, with short dark hair that stuck up at angles suggesting either careful styling or complete disregard for grooming, probably both. A scar ran from her left eyebrow to her cheekbone, and she wore it the way other people wore jewelry, as a conversation piece. Her ship, the Nebula's Regret, was docked 3 bays over, and if the station's mechanic was to be believed, it needed approximately 14,000 credits worth of repairs. Jax had approximately 300 credits to her name, which meant she was in what experts would call a bit of a pickle. "Another round, Krell," she said to the bartender, a 4-armed Beltaxian who could mix drinks, break up fights, and calculate hyperspace trajectories simultaneously. "You gonna pay for the first one first?" Krell asked, polishing a glass with one hand while chopping vegetables with another. "I'm good for it." "That's what you said last time. And I paid you back, didn't I? You gave me a box of what you claimed were authentic Earth trading cards. Baseballs of valuable cultural artifact. They were from a cereal box. Premium cereal." Before Krell could respond with what was sure to be a devastating retort, the bar's atmosphere shifted in that particular way it does when something interesting is about to happen. The kind of shift that makes experienced space rogues slowly move their hands closer to their weapons and bartenders start eyeing their insurance policies. Through the door came a figure wrapped in a travel cloak that had seen better days, possibly better decades. The cloak was doing that thing where it's trying very hard to be inconspicuous and thereby achieving the opposite effect. The figure moved with the kind of careful grace that suggested either extensive martial arts training or experience walking in very high heels, possibly both. Jax watched with the lazy interest of someone who had nothing better to do and no credits to do it with anyway. The figure approached the bar, glancing around nervously in a way that screamed, "I have never been in a dive bar before and I am concerned about my tetanus vaccination status." "I need passage," the figure said in a voice that was trying very hard to sound gruff and succeeding only in sounding like someone with a head cold doing an impression of their uncle. "Off this station. As soon as possible." Krell's various appendages paused mid-task. "You got credits?" "I have." The figure fumbled in their cloak and produced a small pouch that clinked with the unmistakable sound of actual money, not the usual barter goods or IOUs that passed for currency out here. "I have payment." Several heads in the bar turned at the sound. Jax's hand drifted casually to the plasma pistol at her hip. "I might be able to help," said a voice from the corner. A Dravaxian smuggler named Vex unfolded himself from his booth, all scales and unpleasant intentions. "Where you headed?" "Anywhere that isn't here," the cloaked figure said, which was mistake number 2. Mistake number 1 had been showing money in the Rusty Comet. Mistake number 3 was about to be not noticing that Vex's 3 friends had just stood up to block the exit. Jax sighed. She'd been planning to have a nice quiet evening of day drinking and self-pity, and now she was going to have to get involved in something. She could feel it. The universe had a way of doing this to her. She blamed her mother, who had always said she had an overactive sense of heroic timing. "Vex," Jax called out lazily, not turning around. "I wouldn't." "Wouldn't what, Corvino?" "Mind my own business." That's usually good advice, but I was thinking more wouldn't try to rob someone in Krell's bar. You remember what happened to the last person who tried that? There was a moment of silence as everyone remembered what happened to the last person who tried that. It had involved several of Krell's arms, a bottle of premium brandy used as a projectile, and an airlock. Not necessarily in that order. "Why do you care?" Vex asked, though his friends had notably taken a small step back from the door. "I don't, particularly," Jax said, finally turning around on her stool. "But I'm in a betting mood. I bet our cloaked friend here is worth more alive and unmolested than whatever's in that pouch." I bet someone's looking for them. And I bet that whoever's looking is going to be asking around places like this. And when they do, I bet they're going to be very grateful to whoever kept our friend here safe. She smiled, the kind of smile that suggested she had absolutely nothing to lose, which was more or less accurate. So here's what's going to happen. Our mysterious traveler is going to come sit next to me. We're going to have a nice conversation. And everyone else is going to go back to their drinks and their business. Sound good? Vex looked like he wanted to argue, but the problem with Jax's reputation was that about 60% of it was actual facts, 30% was wild exaggeration, and 10% was things she'd made up but then actually done just to keep the story consistent. No one was ever quite sure which category any given story fell into. "You're no fun, Corvino," Vex muttered, but he backed off. "That's Captain Corvino to you," Jax said cheerfully. "Now, mysterious stranger, why don't you come over here and tell me why you're running and who from?" The figure hesitated, then moved to the bar, settling onto the stool next to Jax with visible relief mixed with suspicion. "I can pay you," the figure said quietly. "Let's start with names. I'm Jax. You are?" Another hesitation. Then, "Lena." "Nice to meet you, Lena. Now, let's see what we're working with here." Before Lena could respond, Jax reached out and flipped back the hood of the cloak. What tumbled out was a cascade of golden hair that had probably been very carefully arranged at some point and was now staging a rebellion against all forms of organization. The face that went with the hair was striking in that way that suggested either expensive genetics or very expensive genetic modification, with high cheekbones, large violet eyes that were currently wide with alarm, and the kind of skin that had never seen a day of actual work or a moment of genuine hardship. "Oh no," Jax said. "What?" Lena asked, trying to pull the hood back up. "You're not just running from someone. You're someone important running from someone else important." "I don't know what you mean." "Your hair is literally shimmering. That's either high-end nano-augmentation or you're from one of the royal families. Your hands have never held anything heavier than a spoon, and you smell like," Jax leaned in and sniffed, "Venusian jasmine, which costs about 1,000 credits per ounce. So either you're a very pampered criminal, or you're exactly the kind of person who shows up in system-wide bulletins with big rewards attached." Lena's expression shifted through several emotions in rapid succession. Alarm, resignation, defiance, and finally settling on something like desperate hope. "If you know all that, then you know I need help. Real help. Not just passage to the next station. I need to disappear, and I need someone who knows how to make that happen." "Okay," Jax said slowly. "I'll bite. Who are you really, and who are you running from?" Lena glanced around the bar, leaned in close, and whispered, "I'm Princess Evangelina Solara of the Alio system, and I'm running from my own wedding." Jax stared at her for a long moment, then turned back to Krell. "I'm going to need that second drink after all. Actually, make it a double. No, a triple." "Can't pay for a single," Krell reminded her. "Put it on her tab," Jax said, jerking a thumb at Lena. "She's a princess. She's good for it." "I thought I was supposed to be disappearing," Lena said. "Honey, you walked into the Rusty Comet wearing a cloak that probably cost more than this entire station and smelling like a high-end boutique. You disappeared about as well as a supernova. The only question now is how many bounty hunters are already on their way, and whether we can get off this floating trash heap before they arrive." As if on cue, the station's PA system crackled to life. "Attention all personnel. This is dock control. We have 3 incoming ships requesting permission to search the station for a fugitive. They claim to be royal security. Please prepare for immediate inspection." The bar went quiet. Everyone looked at Lena, then at Jax. 900 credits, Jax said. "What?" "That's my fee. 900 credits to get you off this station and to somewhere safe. Plus expenses. Plus a bonus if anyone shoots at us." "That's robbery. That's business. You want to negotiate with the royal security guards instead." Lena grabbed the pouch from her cloak and thrust it at Jax. "Fine. Here. Just get me out of here." Jax weighed the pouch in her hand, did some quick mental math, and grinned. "Krell, I'm paying my tab. About time. And buying a round for the house. The bar erupted in cheers, which was exactly what Jax wanted. In the confusion, she grabbed Lena's arm and pulled her toward the back exit. Where's your ship? Lena asked as they hurried through corridors that smelled of oil and questionable life choices. 3 bays over. The Nebula's regret. She's not much to look at, but she's fast. Usually, when she's working, which is most of the time. Okay, some of the time. You're not exactly inspiring confidence. You're not exactly spoiled for choice, princess. They rounded a corner and nearly ran into a squad of guards in the blue and silver livery of the Aelio's royal fleet. Jax didn't hesitate. She grabbed a cargo container release lever and yanked it. A cascade of shipping crates tumbled down, blocking the corridor behind them. That was amazing, Lena said as they ran. That was lucky. Big difference. They burst into Docking Bay 7, where the Nebula's regret sat looking like exactly the kind of ship owned by exactly the kind of person who would name it that. It was a modified Corellian freighter, assuming Corellian freighters had been in several fights, lost most of them, and had been held together afterward with duct tape, welding, and optimism. That's your ship. She's got it where it counts, Jax said, which was technically true if you didn't think too hard about what it was or where it counts might be. They ran up the loading ramp. Jax slammed her hand on the door control, and the ramp began to close behind them. Strap in, Jax yelled, running for the cockpit. This is going to be interesting. You keep using that word, Lena called after her. I don't think it means what you think it means. Jax threw herself into the pilot's seat and began flipping switches with the practiced ease of someone who had performed emergency launches so many times she could do it in her sleep, and had, on at least 2 occasions. Come on, baby, don't fail me now, she muttered to the ship. The engines whined in protest but gradually built up power. Outside, she could see more guards running toward the docking bay. We're not going to make it, Lena said from the co-pilot's seat, where she'd strapped herself in with the kind of clumsy determination that suggested this was her first time. Ye of little faith, Jax said, and pulled the launch lever. The Nebula's regret shot out of the docking bay like a cork from a bottle, spun twice, narrowly avoided colliding with a cargo hauler, and accelerated away from the station with all the grace of a drunken walrus. Warning, the ship's computer announced in a bored voice. 3 ships are pursuing. They are Halios. They seem upset. Ignore them, Jax said, her hands flying over the controls. They are firing on us. Okay, don't ignore that. Shields up. The ship shuddered as a plasma bolt grazed their hull. Warning lights began flashing across the console, which was concerning mainly because several of them were lights Jax didn't remember installing. What's that one mean? Lena asked, pointing at a pulsing red light. No idea. I think it came with the ship. You think? I've been meaning to check the manual. Another hit, this one more solid. The ship lurched to the left. Okay, Jax muttered, time for the fancy flying. She yanked the control stick hard, and the Nebula's regret dove toward the nearest moon. A barren rock with a desolation point, which someone had clearly named before the tourism board got involved. What are you doing? Lena screamed. Trust me. I don't know you. Then trust the ship. I literally just met the ship. The surface of the moon rushed up at them. Behind them, the 3 pursuit ships matched their trajectory, probably confident that Jax was going to pull up at the last second. She didn't. Instead, she flew straight into a narrow canyon that appeared on the moon's surface, a crack in the rock that was barely wider than the ship. The Nebula's regret scraped along the walls, throwing sparks, while Jax wrestled with the controls. 2 of the pursuit ships pulled up, unable to follow. The 3rd tried to match her maneuver and wasn't quite fast enough. There was a distant explosion as it clipped the canyon wall. You're completely insane, Lena shouted. I prefer creatively risk-tolerant, Jax replied, pulling the ship up and out of the canyon, accelerating hard. Now, let's see if we can make the jump to hyperspace before the other 2 catch up. Can we? We're about to find out. Jax punched in coordinates more or less at random, pointed the ship away from the moon, and engaged the hyperdrive. Nothing happened. Warning, the ship's computer said. Hyperdrive needs 30 seconds to charge. We don't have 30 seconds. Then I would suggest flying faster. Jax did something to the controls that made the ship make a noise like a cat being stepped on, but their speed increased. Behind them, the two remaining pursuit ships were gaining. 20 seconds, the computer announced. Plasma fire streaked past the viewport. One bolt hit their rear shields, and several more warning lights joined the party. 10 seconds. Any time now would be great, Jax muttered. 5 seconds. The pursuit ships were right on top of them now. Jax could practically see the annoyed expressions of their pilots. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hyperdrive engaged. Enjoy your trip. The stars stretched into lines, and the universe turned inside out in that particular way that always made Jax's teeth itch. A moment later, they were in hyperspace, and the pursuit ships were several light years behind them. Jax let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding and looked over at Lena, who was gripping the armrests of her seat so hard her knuckles were white. "So," Jax said cheerfully, "welcome aboard the Nebula's Regret. I'm Captain Jax Corvino. I believe we've already established that you're a runaway princess. Now, before we go any further, I have just one question. What? Do you have any more money? Because what you gave me will cover getting us away from the station. But if we're going to be running from the entire Aelio's royal fleet, I'm going to need to charge extra." Lena stared at her for a long moment, then started laughing. It was the kind of laugh that suggested she was either on the edge of hysteria or had just realized how absurd her situation was. Possibly both. "You're serious?" "Completely. Running from governments is expensive. There's fuel costs, bribe costs, the inevitable damage to the ship, therapy costs for me. I don't have any more money with me. Then we might have a problem. But I have something better." "What's that?" Lena smiled, and for the first time, Jax saw a glimpse of something other than the frightened runaway. There was steel under that princess exterior. "I have information. Information about why they want me back so badly. Information that could make us both very rich, if you're willing to take a risk." Jax leaned back in her chair and studied the princess. "I'm listening." "Not yet," Lena said. "First, I need to know I can trust you. Really trust you. Not just you're paying me so I won't sell you out trust, but actual trust." "That's fair," Jax admitted. "So what do you want to know?" "Everything. Who you are, how you ended up here, why you're flying around in a ship that sounds like it's held together with hope and spare parts." "That's going to take a while. We're in hyperspace. According to your console, we have 6 hours until we reach wherever we're going. I think we have time." Jax considered this, then shrugged. "All right, princess. But if I'm telling you my life story, you're telling me yours. Deal? Deal. And we're going to need drinks." "I don't drink." "You do now. Welcome to the outlaw life, princess. First rule, when someone offers you a drink, you take it. Second rule, never tell anyone your real name if you can help it. Third rule, trust your gut, your ship, and occasionally your captain, in that order." Those sound like terrible rules. They've kept me alive so far. "For how long?" Jax grinned. "You'd be surprised. Now, come on. Let me show you where the good stuff is hidden. And then we're going to have a long talk about why exactly you're running away from your wedding, and what it is you think I can do about it." As they unbuckled and headed back into the ship's interior, the Nebula's Regret continued its journey through hyperspace, carrying 2 women who had nothing in common except a mutual need to be somewhere else, and a ship that was determined to fall apart dramatically at the worst possible moment. It was, Jax reflected, a pretty typical Tuesday. Part 2. Stories over stolen bourbon. The galley of the Nebula's Regret was generous in the sense that it technically existed. In most other senses, it was the kind of room that made you question the captain's priorities, life choices, and grasp of basic hygiene. It had a table that folded down from the wall, 2 chairs that Martian whiskey, which is terrible. Venusian wine, which is worse. Andromedan rum, which is technically classified as an industrial solvent. And, aha! She pulled out a bottle with a triumphant flourish. Earth bourbon. The real stuff. I won this off a cargo hauler captain in a game of galactic poker. Did you cheat? Lena asked, settling into one of the chairs with the cautious air of someone who wasn't entirely sure it would support her weight. Absolutely. He was cheating too, though, so it was fine. Honor among thieves and all that. Jax found 2 glasses that were relatively clean, poured generous measures into each, and slid one across the table to Lena. To new partnerships and bad decisions. Lena picked up the glass, sniffed it suspiciously, and took a tiny sip. Her face went through a complicated journey of expressions, eventually settling on something between surprise and approval. That's actually good. Don't sound so shocked. I have some standards. Jax took a drink from her own glass and leaned back in her chair, which creaked alarmingly. All right, princess. You wanted my story. You got it. Fair warning, though, it's not particularly exciting. No secret royal lineage, no tragic destiny, no chosen one prophecy. Just a girl who made a lot of bad choices and somehow ended up with a ship. I find that hard to believe, Lena said, taking another sip. People don't become space rogues by accident. You'd be surprised how often they do. Jax smiled, that particular smile that suggested uncomfortable memories being held at bay with humor. But fine, let's start at the beginning. I'm from Earth. Old Earth, the actual planet, not one of the colonies. Grew up in New Chicago, which is about as romantic as it sounds, meaning not at all. My mom worked 3 jobs, my dad worked 2, and I was the middle child of 5, which meant I got ignored just enough to get into trouble but not enough to get away with anything. What kind of trouble? The usual kind. Stealing candy from stores, sneaking into movies, hot-wiring hover bikes for joyrides. By the time I was 16, I'd been arrested 4 times and let go 3 times with warnings. The 4th time, the judge gave me a choice: juvenile detention or military service. You joined the military. Felt like the better option at the time. Turned out the United Earth Space Force was looking for pilots, and I had the reflexes for it. Plus, they fed me, which was a significant upgrade from home. So I signed up, went through training, got assigned to a patrol cruiser, and spent 3 years flying around the outer reaches looking for pirates and smugglers. Wait, Lena interrupted. You were hunting pirates. Ironic, right? I was actually pretty good at it too. Made lieutenant by 22. Had a good crew, a good ship, a future that looked like something approaching respectable. What happened? Jax took another drink, longer this time. What always happens? I found out the people I was working for weren't much better than the people I was hunting. We were ordered to seize a colony ship carrying refugees. No trial, no hearing, just confiscate everything they had and send them back to a war zone. I said no. My commander said yes. I said I was going to report him. He said I was going to prison. So you ran. So I ran. Took one of the patrol skiffs, headed for the nearest neutral station, and figured I'd worry about the future when it arrived. That was 8 years ago. The future's still pending. How did you end up with the Nebula's regret? Won her in a card game, believe it or not. Same captain I got the bourbon from. Actually, he was having a really bad night. The ship was in even worse shape than she is now, if you can believe it. Took me 2 years of modifications, repairs, and questionable upgrades to get her to the point where she'd actually fly without exploding. She's not pretty, but she's mine, and she's gotten me out of more trouble than I can count. Lena was quiet for a moment, turning her glass in her hands. Do you regret it? Running? Every day, Jax said honestly. But I'd regret the alternative more. You can live with doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Living with doing the wrong thing for no reason at all? That's harder. That's very philosophical for a space rogue. Space rogue with a lot of time alone in hyperspace. You think about things. Jax topped off both their glasses. All right, I've told you my tragic backstory. Your turn. Why exactly is a princess running away from her own wedding? And don't tell me it's just because you don't like the groom. There's got to be more to it than that. Lena took a longer drink this time, as if fortifying herself. You're right. It's not just about the groom, though for the record, I don't like him. I've met him exactly 3 times, and each time he spent the entire conversation talking to my chest instead of my face, which was impressive considering I was wearing a full diplomatic gown. Charming. He's the Prince Regent of the Obsidian Territories, older than my father, twice divorced, and with a reputation for being about as warm and caring as a black hole. But my parents decided he was a good match because his territories have resources we need and we have technology they want. It's a merger, basically, except instead of companies it's entire star systems, and instead of a contract it's me. And you said no. I said no. Multiple times. My parents said yes. Multiple times. We reached an impasse. Lena's expression darkened. Then I found out it was worse than I thought. The marriage contract includes clauses about offspring. Specifically, how many, how often, and what happens if I don't cooperate. There were penalties. Financial penalties against my entire family if I don't produce an heir within the first 2 years. Jax felt a cold anger settling in her stomach. That's not a marriage contract. That's slavery with better paperwork. That's what I said. My parents said I was being dramatic, that I'd learn to love him, or at least tolerate him, and that duty to the family came before personal happiness. Very traditional of them. The bitterness in Lena's voice could have stripped paint. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I waited until the night before the wedding, stole a transport shuttle, and ran. Just like that. Just like that. Well, not quite. I had help. My younger brother, Marcus, has been planning this with me for months. He's the one who got me fake transit papers, who arranged the shuttle, who made sure I had enough credits to get off-world. He's probably being interrogated right now, and he'll probably be okay with it, because Marcus has always been better at lying than me. Sounds like a good brother. He's the best. He's also the spare heir, so if I disappear, he gets to be next in line for the throne. He's been trying to get our parents to name him successor for years. They won't, though. Something about tradition and firstborns and a bunch of other archaic nonsense. Lena finished her drink and set the glass down with more force than necessary. I'm done with all of it. The protocols, the expectations, the marriage contracts, the whole system. I want out. And then what? You can't just stop being a princess. It's not like you can file paperwork and get a new identity. Actually, Lena said, and now there was something calculating in her expression. Something that reminded Jax that being raised as royalty meant being raised as a politician. That's where you come in, and where the information I mentioned becomes relevant. I'm listening. The wedding wasn't just about an alliance. The Prince Regent has been secretly building a fleet. A massive fleet. Warships like the galaxy hasn't seen since the Unification Wars. He's planning something big, and the marriage was supposed to give him access to Aelio's technology. Specifically, our jump drive technology. Jax sat up straighter. Your system has better jump drives than the rest of the galaxy. Significantly better. We can make jumps that would take other ships weeks. We've kept it secret, kept it proprietary, because it's our biggest advantage in trade negotiations. But if the Prince Regent gets access to our manufacturing facilities, to our research, he could outfit his entire fleet with drives that would let him strike anywhere in the galaxy before anyone knew what was happening. That's huge. That's galaxy-changing huge. Exactly. And I have proof. I have files, recordings, communications between the Prince Regent and various arms dealers. I copied everything before I ran. It's all in here. She tapped her head. Neural storage implant. Standard for royalty. Completely encrypted. Completely secure. Jax whistled low. So you're not just a runaway princess. You're a runaway princess with galaxy-shaking secrets in her head. No wonder they sent 3 ships after you. It gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective. I know where the Prince Regent is building his fleet. There's a hidden shipyard in the Kravex Nebula. If someone were to, say, leak that information to the right people, the Free Trade Coalition, maybe, or the Galactic Senate, they'd have enough evidence to shut down the whole operation. The Prince Regent would be arrested, the wedding would be cancelled, and I'd be free. And you'd also be a hero, probably get pardoned for running away, maybe even get a medal. I don't want a medal. I want my life back, my real life, not the one that was planned for me. Lena leaned forward. So here's what I'm proposing. You help me get this information to the right people. We leak it in a way that can't be traced back to me directly. The Prince Regent goes down, I get my freedom, and you get a finder's fee that would let you repair your ship properly and have enough credits left over to retire somewhere nice. How much of a finder's fee are we talking about? The Free Trade Coalition pays rewards for information about illegal weapons manufacturing. Based on the size of this operation, we're looking at probably 2 million credits. Jax nearly choked on her bourbon. 2 million. Split between us. 1 million each. 1 million credits. Jax said it slowly, like she was testing out a new language. That's retirement money. That's buy a small station money. That's never work again money. That's help me and you never have to worry about credits again money, Lena confirmed. So what do you say? You win. Jax looked at the princess, really looked at her. She saw the determination in those violet eyes, the steel beneath the royal training, the desperate hope of someone who'd finally taken control of their own life. She also saw someone who probably had no idea how dangerous this was going to be. How many people would want those secrets? How many ways this could go catastrophically wrong? She should say no. She should drop the princess at the nearest civilized planet, take her fee, and fly away. She should avoid this mess like a wise person would avoid a black hole. But Jax had never been particularly wise. I'm in, she said, but we're doing this my way, which means carefully, quietly, and with multiple escape plans. And if at any point this starts looking like it's going to get us killed, we run. Deal? Deal. Lena stuck out her hand. Jax shook it, noting that the princess had a firmer grip than she'd expected. Welcome to the outlaw life, princess. Try not to die. I'll do my best. You too. I've been doing my best for 8 years. It's worked out okay so far. Your ship is literally held together with hope and spare parts. Exactly. Okay so far. Jax grinned and poured them both another drink. Now, before we start planning how to take down an evil prince and save the galaxy, I have one more question. What? You said you'd met him 3 times. The groom. What happened the other 2 times? Lena groaned. The first time, he gave me a gift. It was a necklace. A very expensive necklace, probably worth more than your ship. Not a high bar, but continue. It was beautiful, actually. Diamonds and some kind of rare crystal from his home world. Very thoughtful. Except, it had a tracking device in it. Jax burst out laughing. He gave you jewelry with a tracking device. When I confronted him about it, he said it was for my safety. So he'd always know where I was. He seemed genuinely confused about why I was upset. And the second time he tried to kiss me, missed and got my ear instead. He apologized profusely and blamed it on the champagne. But I'm pretty sure he was stone sober. He's just that bad at spatial awareness. Your parents wanted you to marry this man. My parents wanted me to marry his resources and political connections. The man himself was, in their view, a minor detail. Well, Jax raised her glass. Here's to minor details and terrible decisions. And to hoping we don't get killed doing something incredibly stupid but theoretically noble. I'll drink to that, Lena said, and they clinked glasses. Outside the galley window, the swirling colors of hyperspace continued their endless dance, and somewhere behind them, an entire royal fleet was probably very annoyed. But for the moment, in the cramped galley of a barely functional ship, Two women who had nothing in common except a mutual desire to control their own destinies shared drinks and stories. It was, Jax thought, the beginning of either a beautiful friendship or a spectacular disaster. Possibly both. Part 3. The Informant on Zephyr Station. 6 hours later, the Nebula's Regret dropped out of hyperspace near Zephyr Station, a massive trading hub that existed in the neutral zone between 3 different stellar nations, which meant it was technically owned by everyone and policed by no one. It was the kind of place where you could buy anything, sell anything, and pretend to be anyone, as long as you had the credits and didn't ask too many questions. That's our destination? Lena asked, staring at the sprawling structure through the viewport. Zephyr Station looked like someone had taken a dozen different architectural styles, thrown them in a blender, and then assembled the results in zero gravity while drunk. Beautiful, isn't it? Jax said fondly. It looks like it was built by a committee that couldn't agree on anything. That's exactly what happened. Welcome to neutral space, where the only law is supply and demand, and the only crime is not paying your docking fees. They guided the ship toward one of the public docking bays. As they got closer, Lena noticed that many of the other ships were in similar states of disrepair to the Nebula's Regret, which was either comforting or deeply concerning. So what's the plan? Lena asked as Jax brought them in for landing with the kind of controlled chaos that suggested this wasn't her first time docking in a hurry. We find MYX. She's an information broker, probably the best in this sector. If anyone can help us figure out how to leak your intel safely, it's her. You trust her? Absolutely not. But I trust her greed, which is almost as good. As long as we can pay, she'll help us. And if we can't pay, she'll sell us to the highest bidder. Very straightforward, very professional. That's not reassuring. Nothing about this is going to be reassuring, Princess. Best get used to it now. They locked down the ship and headed out into the station. Lena had changed out of her royal cloak into some of Jax's spare clothes, which fit her poorly but at least didn't scream runaway nobility. She'd also attempted to do something with her hair, pulling it back into a ponytail that looked almost normal if you didn't notice that it still shimmered slightly in certain lights. Zephyr Station was overwhelming in the way that only truly cosmopolitan space stations could be. Every species in the galaxy seemed to have at least one representative here. The air smelled of cooking food, ozone, and things that might have been spices or might have been industrial chemicals. Vendors hawked everything from genuine Earth artifacts to authentic alien technology that probably came from a factory on Mars. Stay close, Jax murmured as they navigated through the crowds. And keep your hand on your money. Pickpockets here can steal your wallet, your dignity, and your will to live in under 3 seconds. How do you know so much about this place? I used to work here. Before the military, before the ship. I was a courier, running messages and small packages between the different districts. Learned every shortcut, every back alley, every place to avoid after dark. When is after dark on a space station? It's a metaphor. The point is, some areas are dangerous. They walked for about 15 minutes, passing through markets and residential areas and what looked like an entire district dedicated to semi-legal gambling. Finally, they arrived at a nondescript door marked with a symbol that looked like 3 overlapping circles. Jax knocked in a specific pattern. 3 quick, 2 slow, 1 quick. The door opened a crack, and a mechanical eye on a stalk peered out at them. Password, a synthesized voice demanded. I don't have a password. Tell MYX it's Jax Corvino, and I have a job that'll make her rich. MYX is always rich. Be more specific. Fine. Tell her I have information worth 2 million credits and I need help selling it. The eye stalk retracted. There was a long pause. Then the door opened fully, revealing a corridor lined with what were probably sensors and definitely weapons. She'll see you, the voice said. Leave all weapons in the bin by the door. Any attempt to smuggle weapons past this point will result in immediate vaporization. We're not liable for damage to personal belongings during vaporization. Jax sighed and started pulling out weapons. A plasma pistol from her hip holster. A knife from her boot. Another smaller knife from her other boot. A small EMP device from her jacket pocket. what looked like a grenade from inside her shirt. "Do you always carry this much firepower?" Lena whispered. "This is me traveling light," Jax replied, dropping everything into the bin. "Your turn." "I don't have any weapons." "Check your pockets. You'd be surprised what ends up there." Lena checked and found nothing, which seemed to disappoint Jax slightly. They proceeded down the corridor, which eventually opened into a large office that looked like it had been designed by someone with too much money and not enough taste. She was wearing what appeared to be a business suit made of actual liquid mercury, which was either a fashion statement or a very elaborate threat. "Jax Corvino," MYX said in a voice that sounded like silk wrapped around steel. "It's been what, 2 years? 3. I've been lying low." "So I heard. Something about stealing a cargo ship full of medical supplies and giving it to refugees. They needed it more than the people who were hoarding it." "Noble. Stupid, but noble." All three of MYX's eyes turned to focus on Lena. "And who's your friend?" "Business associate," Jax said quickly. "She has something to sell. We need help finding the right buyer." "What kind of something?" "Information. Detailed, verified information about an illegal weapons operation. Big operation. Could bring down a government." MYX's expression didn't change, but her posture shifted slightly, which was the Solarian equivalent of leaning forward with interest. "How big?" "Hidden shipyard in the Kravex Nebula. Hundreds of warships. Enough firepower to start another unification war." "That is big." MYX turned her attention fully to Lena. "And you have proof of this?" Lena nodded. "Neural storage. Complete files, communications, schematics. Everything." "Whose operation is it?" Jax and Lena exchanged glances. This was the risky part. If MYX had connections to the Prince Regent, telling her could be disastrous. "We need assurances first," Jax said. "Client confidentiality, secure communications, and a guarantee that this information goes to the right people." The right people being the Free Trade Coalition. Maybe the Galactic Senate. Someone who'll actually do something about it instead of just buying the information and burying it. MYX was quiet for a long moment, 2 of her hands steepled together while the other 2 operated a holographic interface that only she could see. Finally, she nodded. "I can arrange that. The FTC pays well for this kind of intel, and they're actually motivated to act on it. Standard fee is 15%. 15% of 2 million is 300,000 credits, Jax said. That's steep. That's what it costs to guarantee this information reaches the right hands through secure channels that can't be traced back to you. You want to try selling it yourself? Be my guest. But I promise you, the moment you start shopping around information about illegal warships, every intelligence agency in the galaxy is going to be tracking you. I can make you invisible." She had a point. Jax looked at Lena, who nodded slightly. "All right," Jax said. "Deal. But we need something else too." "Of course you do. We need new identities. Clean ones. The kind that'll hold up under serious scrutiny." "That's extra." "How much extra?" 50,000 each. 100,000 total. Lena winced. Jax did mental math. 2 million minus 300,000 for MYX's fee, minus 100,000 for the identities, left 1.6 million to split. 800,000 each. Still more money than Jax had ever seen in her life. "Done," Jax said. "But we need the identities first, before we hand over any information." "Don't trust me." "I trust you about as far as I could throw you, and Solarians are heavy." MYX laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a thunderstorm. "Fair enough. I'll have new identity chips ready for you in 6 hours. In the meantime, I suggest you find somewhere to stay that isn't your ship. People are looking for you." "What people?" "All the people. Royal Alio's fleet has put out a bounty. 500,000 for the safe return of Princess Evangelina Solara." MYX's 3 eyes fixed on Lena. "That is you, isn't it? I thought you looked familiar. You have your mother's cheekbones." Lena's face went pale. Jax's hand moved instinctively toward where her gun usually was, then remembered she'd left all her weapons in the bin. "We had a deal," Jax said quietly, dangerously. "And I'm keeping it," MYX replied. "I said I'd help you sell the information and provide new identities. I didn't say anything about turning you in. The bounty is only for her safe return, and safe implies willing. She doesn't look particularly willing. Besides, 500,000 is good money, but 15% of 2 million plus 100,000 for the identity work is better money. I'm greedy, not stupid. You just said we're being hunted by everyone. I said people are looking for you. Different thing. Looking and finding are two different skill levels." MYX pressed something on her desk, and a holographic map appeared, showing Zephyr Station with several areas highlighted. "These are safe zones. Stay in these areas, and you're protected by neutral space laws. Anyone who tries to grab you here will have to deal with station security, and they're very protective of the neutrality. Makes for bad business if people start snatching clients. And outside the safe zones, buyer beware. But I can arrange protection if you need it. Another 50,000. You're expensive. I'm good. There's a difference." MYX stood up, which was impressive because she was nearly 7 feet tall. "Come back in 6 hours. I'll have your new identities ready and a secure channel set up to the Free Trade Coalition. Don't get caught before then. It would complicate my fee structure." "Your concern for our well-being is touching," Jax said dryly. "I try. Oh, and Jax? One more thing." "What?" "Your ship is being watched. 3 different parties, by my count. I'd suggest you don't go back to it until you're ready to leave the station. And when you do leave, I'd suggest you leave fast." "Who's watching it?" "Royal Fleet Intelligence. The Prince Regent's private security. And, oddly enough, someone from the Earth Space Force. That last one's interesting. I didn't know they were involved." Jax felt something cold settle in her stomach. The Earth Space Force. Her old employer. The people she'd run from 8 years ago. Why would they be interested? No idea. But if I were you, I'd find out before they find you. MYX made a shooing gesture with 2 of her hands. "Now go. I have work to do. 6 hours. Don't be late." They collected their weapons and headed back out into the station. Once they were a safe distance away, Lena grabbed Jax's arm. "The Earth Space Force? I thought you said they'd forgotten about you." "I thought they had. Apparently I was wrong." Jax's mind was racing. This doesn't make sense. Why would they care about a runaway princess? Unless what? Unless someone told them about the weapons operation. If the Alios royal family reached out to Earth for help finding you, they might have mentioned why you ran. And if Earth thinks there's an illegal weapons facility threatening galactic stability, they'd definitely be interested. So we have 3 different groups looking for us. And 6 hours to figure out our next move. Jax looked around the crowded station corridor, suddenly seeing potential threats everywhere. "Come on. I know a place where we can lay low. It's not comfortable, but it's safe." "How safe?" "Safe enough that I'm still alive to recommend it. That's about the best endorsement I can give." Part 4. The Safe House That Wasn't. The place Jax had in mind turned out to be a hostel in one of the station's lower districts. The kind of establishment that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions as long as you paid in advance. The lobby smelled like disinfectant trying very hard to cover up something much worse. And the clerk was a being whose species Lena didn't recognize and wasn't sure she wanted to. 2 beds, Jax said, sliding credits across the counter. Private room. 6 hours. The clerk didn't even look up. Room 247. Elevators broken. Stairs are that way. They climbed 4 flights of stairs that seemed to be engaged in a competition to see which step could creak the loudest, and found their room at the end of a corridor that had definitely seen better decades. The room itself was small, containing 2 narrow beds, a chair that was missing 1 leg, and a window that looked out onto another section of the station. It was depressing in that special way that only truly cheap accommodations could manage. Home sweet home, Jax said, checking the door lock and finding it disappointingly flimsy. Lena sat on one of the beds, which squeaked alarmingly. I've gone from palace to this in under 24 hours. That might be a record. Look on the bright side. At least there are no marriage contracts here. True. Just questionable stains and the distinct possibility of bed bugs. Hey, bed bugs are a sign of a well-lived establishment. Shows character. Jax wedged the chair under the door handle for extra security, then sat on the other bed. Okay, we need to think. 3 groups are looking for us. MYX says we're safe in the neutral zones, but we've got 6 hours to kill, and then we need to somehow get the information to the Free Trade Coalition, get our new identities, and get off this station without getting caught. You're very good at summarizing problems. Do you have any solutions? I'm working on it. Problem is, every solution I can think of has about 12 different ways it could go catastrophically wrong. Welcome to my entire life for the past 6 months. Jax smiled at that. Okay, let's think this through. The Royal Fleet wants you back alive. That's good for us, because it means they won't shoot first. The Prince Regent's security, on the other hand, will absolutely shoot first. The Prince Regent doesn't handle rejection well. And the Earth Space Force is a wild card. They might want me, they might want you, they might want both of us. Or they might just be keeping tabs on the situation. Jax rubbed her temples. This would be so much easier if we could just walk up to the Free Trade Coalition and hand them the information directly. Why can't we? Because the FTC has offices on this station, which means they're being watched. The moment we walk in there, every intelligence operative in the neutral zone is going to know about it. So we need a distraction. We need a miracle. Or explosives. I'm open to either. They sat in silence for a moment, both thinking. Then Lena spoke up. What if we use the bounty? Use it how? They're looking for me, right? Specifically me. What if we give them someone who looks like me? I'm not sure I follow. Lena stood up and started pacing, her royal strategic training kicking in. Zephyr Station is full of people. Somewhere on this station, there's probably someone who looks vaguely like me. We get MYX to spread a rumor that I've been spotted in one part of the station. All 3 groups converge on that location. In the chaos, we slip into the FTC offices, hand over the data, get our new identities, and disappear. That's actually not a terrible plan. Except for the part where we need to find someone who looks like you. How hard can it be? I'm not that distinctive. Jax stared at her. Princess, your hair literally glows. You look like you've been carved by master sculptors and polished with expensive oils. You're extremely distinctive. Oh. Lena looked disappointed. Right. The nano-augmentation. Also the fact that your face has been on news broadcasts across multiple star systems. There are probably wanted posters with your face on them plastered all over the station by now. As if summoned by the conversation, there was a knock on the door. Both women froze. Room service, a voice called out. We didn't order room service, Jax called back, reaching for her plasma pistol. Complimentary service. Courtesy of the management. Jax and Lena exchanged looks. Something was wrong. Places like this didn't do complimentary anything. Leave it outside the door, Jax said. Protocol requires I hand it to you personally. Definitely wrong. Jax motioned for Lena to get behind her, then approached the door carefully. Through the crack, she could see a figure in what looked like a service uniform, holding a covered tray. I'm going to open the door, Jax said quietly to Lena. When I do, be ready to run. Way. Window. There's a maintenance catwalk about 3 meters down. It'll hurt, but it won't kill you. That's not reassuring. Nothing about this is, Jax started to say, but then the door exploded inward. The chair went flying. The person in the service uniform dropped the pretense and pulled out a very serious-looking weapon. 2 more people appeared behind them, equally armed. Princess Evangelina. The lead one said in a tone that was trying for professional but landing somewhere around barely contained violence. "The Prince Regent requests your presence." "I'll bet he does," Lena muttered. Jax didn't waste time with talking. She shot out the ceiling light, plunging the room into darkness illuminated only by the glow from the corridor and the faint light from the window. In the confusion, she grabbed Lena's hand and pulled her toward the window. "You said 3 meters." Lena yelled as Jax kicked out the window. "I might have been optimistic." They jumped. It wasn't 3 meters. It was more like 5. They hit the maintenance catwalk hard enough that Jax felt something in her ankle protest loudly. Lena managed to land better, probably all that royal combat training, and immediately helped Jax up. "Run," Jax said, limping but moving. Behind them, they heard shouting and the sound of the Prince Regent's security trying to figure out how to follow them out a window without looking stupid. The catwalk connected to a series of service corridors that ran through the station's infrastructure. Jax had explored these back in her courier days and still remembered most of the layout. They ran through passages lit by emergency lighting, past pipes that carried God knows what, and around corners that all looked the same. "Where are we going?" Lena panted. "Somewhere they won't follow." "That's not specific." "I'm improvising." They burst out of the service corridor into what appeared to be the station's waste management center. The smell was indescribable, which meant Jax wouldn't have to describe it because Lena was already making sounds of disgust that said it all. "You brought us to the garbage." "I brought us to the one place they won't look. Nobody wants to search through a waste management center. Come on, there's an exit on the other side." They picked their way through the facility, trying not to think too hard about what they were stepping in. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of pursuit fading. Either they'd lost them, or the Prince Regent's security had decided that following them through literal garbage was beneath their pay grade. They emerged in a different part of the station entirely, somewhere in the commercial district judging by the shops and the slightly less terrible smell. "Okay," Jax said, catching her breath and trying to ignore the throbbing in her ankle. "New plan. We can't go back to the hostel. We can't go to my ship. We need somewhere safe to wait out the next few hours until MYX has our identities ready." "What about the safe zones she mentioned?" "Those are public areas. We're too exposed there. We need somewhere we can hide but also defend if we need to." "I have an idea," Lena said. "But you're not going to like it." "Why not?" "Because it involves going to the Royal Fleet offices and turning ourselves in." Jax stared at her. "That's your idea? Turn ourselves in?" "Hear me out. The Royal Fleet wants me back alive and unharmed. They're under strict orders from my parents. If we walk into their offices, they'll protect us from the Prince Regent's security and from anyone else who might want to grab us. We'll be safe there. We'll also be prisoners there. Only until MYX contacts us. We can claim we need time to think, that I'm considering returning home. We stall. In 6 hours, MYX sends word that she has our identities ready. We ask to use the bathroom or something, slip out, get to MYX, transfer the data, get our new identities, and disappear before anyone realizes we're gone. That plan has so many holes it's basically Swiss cheese. Do you have a better one?" Jax thought about it. She didn't. Every other option involved more running, more hiding, and more chances to get caught. At least Lena's plan kept them in one place, and the Royal Fleet would keep the other groups away. "I hate this," Jax said finally. "Me too. But it might work." Might being the operative word. "Do you have a better idea?" "No, and I hate that even more." Jax sighed. "All right. Let's go turn ourselves in to your parents' people. But if this goes wrong, I'm blaming you." "Fair enough. If it goes wrong, you can say I told you so as much as you want. I'm holding you to that." They made their way through the commercial district, trying to look casual despite being covered in suspicious stains from the waste management center and one of them limping slightly. The Royal Alio's fleet offices were in one of the nicer parts of the station, marked with official banners and guarded by 2 very serious-looking soldiers in dress uniform. "Here goes nothing," Jax muttered. They walked up to the entrance. The guards immediately went on alert, hands moving toward weapons. "I am Princess Evangelina Solara," Lena said in her most official voice, the one that suggested she'd been ordering people around since birth. "I wish to speak with whoever is in command here. Now." The guards looked at each other. One of them spoke quietly into a comm device. A moment later, the doors opened, and an officer in full fleet regalia came striding out. She was older, maybe 50, with the kind of face that suggested she'd seen combat and hadn't enjoyed it but had been very good at it anyway. "Your Highness," the officer said, and actually bowed. "We've been looking for you. Your parents are very worried." "I'm sure they are," Lena said coolly. "I need sanctuary. Someone just tried to kidnap me. They were claiming to work for the Prince Regent." The officer's expression darkened. "Come inside. Immediately. You too," she added to Jax. "Anyone with the princess is under our protection." They were ushered inside quickly, and Jax heard the doors lock behind them with a very final-sounding click. For better or worse, they were safe. For now. Part 5. The Waiting Game. The Royal Aelio's fleet offices were exactly what Jax expected. Pristine, efficient, and decorated with enough official portraits and flags to make it very clear whose territory you were in. They were escorted to a comfortable waiting room with actual furniture that wasn't trying to collapse, offered refreshments that didn't come from a questionable synthesizer, and generally treated like valued guests rather than fugitives. Which made Jax even more suspicious. "This is too easy," she muttered to Lena while the officer, Commander Salas, according to her name tag, made arrangements. "They think I'm considering coming home. They're going to do everything they can to make me comfortable so I don't run again." Lena took a sip of actual tea, real tea from Earth, and sighed. "I'll admit, I've missed some aspects of the royal treatment. Don't get too comfortable. We're still prisoners, just polite prisoners." Commander Salas returned, holding a communication pad. "Your Highness, I've informed your parents that you're safe. They're asking to speak with you via holocom." "Not yet," Lena said firmly. "I need time. Time to think about everything. Time to process." "Of course. Take all the time you need. In the meantime, is there anything we can get for you?" "Medical attention." She glanced at Jax's ankle, which had started swelling. "My friend could use an ice pack," Lena said before Jax could refuse. A medic was summoned, and despite Jax's protests, her ankle was examined, declared to be a mild sprain, and wrapped efficiently. She was given ice and painkillers and stern instructions to stay off it as much as possible. "Thank you," Lena said to the medic with genuine warmth. "Would it be possible for us to have a private room? Somewhere we can rest? It's been an exhausting day." "Of course, Your Highness." Salas led them to a suite that was nicer than anywhere Jax had lived in the past 5 years. It had actual beds with clean sheets, a bathroom with a shower that probably dispensed actual water, and, most importantly, a door that locked from the inside. Once they were alone, Lena immediately went to the bathroom and started the shower, then came back out. "The water will cover our voices," she explained quietly. "Just in case they're listening." "They're definitely listening. So we have to be careful." Lena checked her wrist chrono. 4 hours until we're supposed to meet MYX. We need to figure out how to get out of here. I'm open to suggestions. There's a service entrance on the lower level. I saw it when we came in. If we can make it there, we can get back into the general station population. How do you know about service entrances? Marcus and I used them all the time at the palace when we wanted to sneak out. Every official building has them. They're for staff, deliveries, maintenance. Usually less guarded because no one expects anyone to use them as an escape route. Okay, so we need to get to the lower level without anyone noticing. That's going to be difficult. Not if we have a reason to be down there. Lena's eyes lit up with an idea. I'll say I want to see the security setup. That I need to understand how safe I am here before I agree to stay. They'll give us a tour, and during that tour, we slip away. That's actually not bad. But timing is everything. We need to do this with exactly enough time to get to MYX, get the new identities, and get to the ship before they realize we're gone. They spent the next 3 hours planning, resting, and trying not to seem too nervous. Jax took the opportunity to actually shower, which was a revelation after days in space and an incident in waste management. The clothes they'd been given were clean fleet uniforms in civilian styling, which would help them blend in better when they made their escape. Lena, for her part, seemed to be settling into a role. She was playing the part of the dutiful daughter considering her options, torn between duty and desire. It was convincing enough that even Jax almost believed it. "You're good at this," Jax observed. "Royal training. I've been playing roles my entire life. This is just another performance." But there was something sad in her voice when she said it. With 1 hour to go, Lena summoned Commander Salas. "I want to see your security setup," she announced. "Before I make any decisions, I need to understand how you're protecting me. I need to see everything." Salas hesitated. "Your Highness, our security protocols are classified. I am a member of the Alios royal family. Your security protocols are classified from civilians, not from me. And if you want me to stay here and not walk out that door right now, you'll show me what I want to see." It was a masterful performance, equal parts authority and threat. Salas caved. "Of course, Your Highness. If you'll follow me." They were taken on a comprehensive tour of the facility. Security stations, communication centers, armories, all very impressive and very boring. Jax made mental notes of everything she saw, including the locations of cameras, the patterns of guard patrols, and the layout of the corridors. Finally, they reached the lower level. As Lena had predicted, there was a service entrance, currently being used by a delivery crew bringing in supplies. "And this entrance?" Lena asked, pointing at it. "How is it secured?" "Retinal scanners for all deliveries, manifest checks, and armed guards during operating hours," Salas explained. "And after operating hours. Sealed and monitored remotely. But right now it's operating hours." "Yes, Your Highness." "I see." Lena turned to Jax. "What do you think? Is this adequate security?" "Seems fine," Jax said, catching on. "Though I'd want to see the actual scanner in operation. Make sure it can't be bypassed." "Good idea." Lena turned back to Salas. "Show us." They approached the service entrance, where a delivery crew was arguing with a guard about a missing item on their manifest. In the confusion, with Salas trying to sort out the problem and multiple people talking at once, Jax and Lena simply walked through. They walked calmly, confidently, like they belonged there. Past the arguing crew, past the distracted guard, through the service entrance and out into the station corridors beyond. They made it about 50 meters before the alarm started. "Run!" Jax yelled, though her ankle immediately protested. They ran anyway, or in Jax's case, ran limp-hobbled as fast as she could. Behind them, they could hear guards shouting and the sound of pursuit. "This way." Lena grabbed Jax's arm and pulled her down a side corridor. The princess was surprisingly strong when motivated. They burst into a crowded marketplace, dodging between stalls and vendors. Jax grabbed a cloak from one display without paying, threw it over Lena, and they kept moving. The shouts behind them were getting closer. "How far to MYX?" Lena panted. 3 more sectors. "We're not going to make it." "Yes, we are. Come on." They emerged from the marketplace into a transport hub. Dozens of automated trams were moving through, carrying passengers between different parts of the station. Jax pulled Lena onto the nearest tram just as it was departing. "Where does this go?" Lena asked. "No idea. But it's away from them." They rode for 2 stops, then got off and switched to another tram going in a different direction. Then another. By the time they finally headed toward MYX's sector, they'd lost their pursuit, though Jax knew it was only temporary. "They'll be watching MYX's place," Jax said. "That's where they'll expect us to go." "So how do we get in?" "The same way I got in the first time I came here. Through the back door." "There's a back door." "There's always a back door. You just have to know where to look." Jax led them through a series of maintenance tunnels that technically didn't exist on any official station maps. They emerged in the sector adjacent to MYX's office, in a storage area filled with crates and forgotten equipment. "Wait here," Jax said. "I'm going to scout ahead." "I'm coming with you." "Your Highness." "Stop calling me that. We're in this together." "I'm coming." They crept through the storage area to an access hatch that led into the walls of MYX's building. Inside, they could hear voices. Multiple voices, none of them friendly. Waiting for them to show up, someone was saying. "The information broker is being very cooperative." "Cooperative under duress?" another voice asked. "Does it matter? Point is, when Corvino and the princess arrive, we'll be ready." Jax cursed silently. They'd gotten to MYX, which meant either MYX had sold them out, or more likely, someone had convinced her that cooperation was healthier than loyalty. "What now?" Lena whispered. Jax thought furiously. They needed those identities, but walking into MYX's office was clearly suicide. "Unless you still have that neural storage?" Jax asked quietly. "Yes." "Why?" "Because we're going to make a trade. But not the one anyone's expecting." Part 6. The deal nobody wanted. 20 minutes later, Jax and Lena walked through the front door of MYX's office. They'd left their weapons behind, hands raised in clear surrender. The three people waiting inside immediately drew their weapons. "Well," said a man in Earth Space Force uniform, "this is easier than expected." "Captain Corvino," said a woman in Royal Fleet colors. "Princess Evangelina, you're both coming with us." "Actually," Jax said calmly, "no one's going anywhere until we all have a conversation like reasonable adults who aren't pointing guns at each other." "You're not in a position to negotiate," the Earth officer said. His name tag read Morrison, and he had the kind of face that suggested he'd been annoyed by life since birth. "Sure I am. See, here's the thing. Everyone here wants something. You," she nodded at Morrison, "want me because I'm a deserter and you've got 8 years of paperwork to file. You," she nodded at the Royal Fleet officer, "want the princess back because her parents are paying you to want that. And where's the third group?" "If you mean the Prince Regent's people," MYX said from behind her desk, looking deeply unhappy about the situation, "they were asked to leave. Neutrality laws." "How convenient. So we've got two groups here, both wanting different things. But nobody's actually getting what they want most." "And what's that?" Morrison asked. "Information about an illegal weapons facility that could destabilize the entire galaxy. You want that, don't you, Captain Morrison? That's why you're really here. Someone told you there might be intel about a hidden fleet, and that's way more important than one deserter pilot." Morrison's expression didn't change, but Jax saw his finger move slightly on his weapon. "Hit a nerve." "And you," Jax turned to the Royal Fleet officer, whose name tag read Torres, "you want the princess home safe. But what you really want is to not be the officer who has to explain to the king and queen why their daughter was caught in a shootout on Zephyr Station. Bad for your career." "You're stalling," Torres said. "I'm explaining. There's a difference. Here's what's going to happen. Lena is going to transfer the data from her neural storage to a secure drive. We're going to hand that drive to Captain Morrison, who's going to take it to Earth Command, who's going to take it to the Galactic Senate, who's going to do something about the Prince Regent's illegal fleet. Everyone wins. Except you don't get paid," MYX pointed out. "I'll survive. The important thing is the information gets to people who'll actually use it." "And what do you get out of this?" Morrison asked suspiciously. "You let us walk. Both of us. You pretend you never saw us. Lena gets her freedom, I get mine, and you get to be the hero who exposed a galaxy-wide weapons conspiracy. Your career will thank you. My orders are to bring you both in. Your orders were written before anyone knew about the weapons facility. Trust me, Captain, when your superiors see what's on this drive, they're going to care a lot more about that than about two people who just want to disappear." There was a long silence. Torres looked at Morrison. Morrison looked at Torres. MYX looked like she wanted to be literally anywhere else. How do we know the information is real? Torres asked finally. Let me show you, Lena said. She reached up to her temple, where a small port was hidden under her hair. With practiced ease, she extracted a data chip, inserted it into a reader on MYX's desk, and pulled up files. What appeared on the holographic display made everyone in the room go very quiet. Schematics. Hundreds of them. Warships of a design that shouldn't exist, equipped with weapons that were banned by 6 different galactic treaties. Communication logs showing deals with arms dealers, with rogue governments, with terrorist organizations. Financial records showing billions of credits moving through shell corporations. And coordinates for a hidden shipyard in the Kravex Nebula. Sweet mercy, Morrison breathed. The Prince Regent was planning to start a war, Lena said quietly. Multiple wars, actually. He was going to sell these ships to anyone who could pay, every conflict in the galaxy, and make himself rich and powerful in the process. The marriage to me was just supposed to give him access to better jump drive technology so his ships could strike faster. This is huge, Torres said. This is career-defining, Morrison corrected. He looked at Jax, and for the first time, there was something like respect in his eyes. You're really going to just hand this over? Walk away from the biggest score of your life? I'm a lot of things, Captain, but I'm not the kind of person who lets galactic wars happen just to make a profit. Jax smiled slightly. I prefer smaller-scale chaos. Morrison looked at Torres. If we take this to our superiors, explain the situation. They'll want to act on it immediately, Torres finished. The bounty on the princess won't matter. Not in the face of this. So we have a deal? Jax asked. Another pause. Then Morrison holstered his weapon. We have a deal. On one condition. What? You really do disappear. I mean it. I don't want to see or hear about either of you again. No more heroics, no more galaxy saving, no more anything that puts you on anyone's radar. You vanish. That was always the plan, Jax said. Good. Morrison took the data chip from the reader and secured it carefully. You've got a 12-hour head start before we file our reports. I'd suggest you use it wisely. Torres looked at Lena. Your Highness, your parents. We'll be fine, Lena said firmly. Tell them I'm safe, I'm happy, and I'm finally making my own choices. Tell them Marcus should be named heir. He'll be better at it than I ever was. And tell them I love them, but I can't be what they want me to be. Torres nodded slowly. I'll tell them. Thank you. Morrison and Torres left, taking with them the most explosive piece of intelligence any military officer had seen in decades. Once they were gone, MYX let out a long breath. Well, she said, that was terrifying. I thought for sure someone was going to start shooting. Did you sell us out? Jax asked. Of course not. They traced your movements and figured out you'd come here eventually. I was going to warn you, but then they walked in with guns and persuasive arguments about cooperation. MYX pulled out 2 identity chips from a drawer. Your new identities, as promised. Though now you don't have to pay me, which is disappointing. Consider it a loss, leader, Jax said, taking the chips. We might need more work from you in the future. If you actually disappear like you promised, you won't. Fair point. Jax handed 1 chip to Lena. Welcome to your new life, Your Highness. Or should I say, welcome to your new life, Kara Thorne, independent trader. Lena looked at the chip, at the name displayed on it. Kara Thorne. I like it. And I'm now Jessamine, freight hauler. Jax grinned. We should probably get to the ship. 12 hours isn't that much time. Before you go, MYX said, you should know. The Prince Regent had people watching your ship, but they left about an hour ago. Probably heard about the data being on Zephyr Station and went to report to him. Your ship should be clear. Small favors. Also, MYX pulled out a credit chip. I'm paying you anyway. Not the full amount, obviously, but something. Call it hazard pay for the entertainment value of watching you 2 talk your way out of an impossible situation. How much? Jax asked suspiciously. 50,000. 25 each. It wasn't the 2 million they'd been planning on, but it was more than enough to repair the ship and keep them flying for a good long while. You're not as terrible as you pretend to be, Jax said, taking the chip. Don't tell anyone. It would ruin my reputation. MYX smiled with 3 eyes. Now get out of here. And Corvino? Try to stay alive. The galaxy's more interesting with you in it. I'll do my best. They left MYX's office, walked through corridors that suddenly seemed less threatening, and made their way back to the docking bay where the Nebula's Regret waited. Jax half expected to find more trouble, but the way was clear. We actually did it, Lena said as they boarded the ship. We actually pulled it off. Don't jinx it. We're not gone yet. Jax limped to the pilot's seat, her ankle still protesting. Strap in. I want to be out of here before anyone changes their mind. The Nebula's Regrets engines came online with their usual symphony of concerning noises, but everything was functioning. Jax requested departure clearance, expecting problems, but it was granted immediately. Apparently no one wanted to keep them around. They lifted off, cleared the station's traffic pattern, and accelerated into open space. So, Lena said once they were clear and Jax had engaged the autopilot toward the nearest uninhabited system. What now? Now we figure out what 2 people do when they've just saved the galaxy and no one's going to thank them for it. I have some ideas. Such as finding somewhere quiet. Somewhere we can lie low while the galaxy sorts itself out. Somewhere with beaches, maybe. Beaches sound nice. I haven't seen a beach in 8 years. Then beaches it is. Lena leaned back in her seat. Though we should probably fix the ship first. It's still making concerning noises. It always makes concerning noises. That's how I know it's working. That's a terrible metric for determining if something's working. It's gotten me this far. They flew in comfortable silence for a while, leaving Zephyr Station and its complications behind them. The ship's computer eventually spoke up. Destination required. Set course for Paradise Reach, Jax said. It was a small colony world in the outer territories, pleasant climate, low population, and crucially, very bad record-keeping when it came to new arrivals. Paradise Reach, the computer confirmed. Travel time, 6 days. Perfect. That gives us time to figure out what comes next. What does come next? Lena asked. Jax thought about it. For 8 years, she'd been running. From her past, from her choices, from herself. But maybe it was time to stop running and start choosing what came next. I don't know, she admitted. But I think that's okay. For the first time in a long time, I don't have to know. I can just see what happens. That sounds nice. Doesn't it? Jax smiled. Though we should probably talk about the fact that you're now my co-pilot. Which means you need to learn how to fly this thing. You're going to teach me. Someone has to. And you're already here, so might as well be you. Will it be difficult? Extremely. But I have 6 days and nothing else to do. So buckle up, princess. Your royal education is about to include a lot of yelling, some mild panic, and probably at least one near collision. That doesn't sound pleasant. It's not, but it builds character. And besides, if you're going to be an independent trader named Carathorn, you need to know how to fly your own ship. I don't have my own ship. Not yet, but give it time. Everyone ends up with a ship eventually. It's one of the laws of the universe. Is that so? Absolutely. I read it somewhere. Probably. Lena laughed, the kind of laugh that came from genuine joy rather than royal obligation. And for the first time since Jax had met her, she looked truly free. All right, Captain. Teach me to fly. First lesson. This button here? Never push it unless you want to eject the waste tanks into open space. Why would I want to do that? You wouldn't, but I've done it by accident 3 times, so I feel obligated to warn you. That explains why you know the Waste Management Center so well. We don't talk about that. And so, as the nebula's regret carried them toward an uncertain but chosen future, two women who had started as strangers thrown together by circumstance began the process of becoming something more. Friends, partners, maybe family in the way that crew members became family. The galaxy continued turning. The Prince Regent would soon be arrested, his fleet dismantled, his plans in ruins. Wars that would have consumed billions of lives would never happen. And somewhere, far from courts and protocols and forced marriages, a former princess would learn to fly a temperamental freighter captained by a former deserter with a bad attitude and a good heart. It wasn't the ending anyone had planned, but it was the ending they'd chosen. And that made all the difference. Epilogue, 6 months later. The nebula's regret touched down on Paradise Reach with only slightly more grace than usual, which was to say it landed without catching fire, which Jax counted as a success. "You're getting better at this," she said to Lena, or Kara, as everyone here knew her, who was in the pilot's seat. "Only because you're a terrible teacher who uses insults as motivation. It works, doesn't it?" Reluctantly, yes. They'd been on Paradise Reach for 3 months now, using it as a base while they took small cargo runs to nearby systems. Nothing fancy, nothing illegal, just honest work that paid enough to keep them flying and fed. The ship had been repaired properly, using some of MYX's credits, and while it still made concerning noises, they were different concerning noises, which Jax insisted was an improvement. Lena had adapted to civilian life with surprising ease. She'd cut her hair short, which stopped the shimmering that had made her so recognizable. She'd learned to fly, to repair systems, to negotiate cargo rates, and to curse like a proper space trader when things went wrong. The princess was still in there, occasionally emerging in moments of crisis with the kind of commanding presence that came from royal training. But mostly she was just Kara, co-pilot and friend. Message coming in, the ship's computer announced as they shut down the engines. Jax pulled it up on her console. It was from MYX. "Thought you two would want to know. The Prince Regent was sentenced today. Life imprisonment on a penal colony in the Outer Dark. His assets have been seized, his government dissolved, his fleet dismantled. It's over." Attached was a news article with a headline that read, "Galaxy averts war, secret fleet discovered and destroyed." There was no mention of a runaway princess or a deserter captain. Just vague references to intelligence operatives and concerned citizens who had brought the plot to light. "We're not even a footnote," Lena observed. "Perfect," Jax said. "That's exactly what we wanted." Another attachment opened. It was a short message, audio only, but they both recognized the voice. It was Marcus, Lena's brother. "Hey, sis. I know you're out there somewhere, probably on some ship that sounds like it's dying. Just wanted you to know, I got it. I'm air now. Mom and Dad weren't thrilled, but the Senate voted in favor, and they couldn't overrule it. I promise I'll do better than they did. I promise I'll make the changes you always talked about. And I promise I won't force anyone into marriages they don't want. Be safe out there. And maybe, someday, come home for a visit. Just to say hi. No protocols, no obligations. Just family." The message ended. Lena was quiet for a long moment. "You okay?" Jax asked. "Yeah, better than okay. He's going to be a great king. Better than you would have been. Different than I would have been. Which is probably what they need." They sealed up the ship and headed into town, which was really just one main street with shops and a couple of restaurants and a lot of people who didn't ask questions about anyone's past. Their favorite spot was a cafe that served real coffee, imported from Earth at probably criminal prices but worth every credit. They'd made it a ritual to come here after every landing, to decompress and plan the next run. "So," Lena said as they settled into their usual table, "where to next?" "I heard there's a colony on Theta Persei that needs medical supplies. Good pay, easy run." "Sounds perfect." "Oh," Jax said carefully, "we could take a few weeks off. We've got enough credits. We could just be here for a while. Rest." Lena looked at her with surprise. "You want to rest? You? The woman who once told me that resting is just practicing for death." I might have been hasty with that assessment. Besides, we've earned a break. Saved the galaxy and all. Quietly saved the galaxy. The best kind of saving. Jax took a sip of her coffee. I've been thinking. About the future. About what comes after the running and the hiding and the figuring things out. And I think maybe I'd like to have a future. A real one. Not just day-to-day survival, but actual plans. Dreams, even. That's very philosophical for someone who drinks rocket fuel for fun. I contain multitudes. Jax smiled. What about you? Any dreams you want to pursue now that you're not busy avoiding marriages and exposing conspiracies? Lena thought about it. I'd like to see more of the galaxy. Not the official parts, the ones with embassies and protocols. The real parts. The weird stations and the colony worlds and the places where people are just trying to live their lives. We could do that. We've got a ship. It makes concerning noises, but it flies. It makes more than concerning noises. Yesterday it sounded like someone was strangling a cat in the engine room. That was just the flux capacitor. I hit it with a wrench. It's fine now. That's not how flux capacitors work. It is on my ship. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking their coffee and watching the people of paradise go about their days. Farmers bringing in crops, traders haggling over prices, families walking together, all of them living lives that were small and ordinary and perfectly content. You know what I realized? Lena said eventually. What? I'm happy. Actually happy. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I want to be, doing exactly what I want to do, with exactly the people I want to be with. People plural. You and the ship. She's grown on me. Don't let her hear you say that. She'll get a big head. Well, a bigger head. She already thinks she's the best ship in the fleet. She's the only ship in our fleet. Exactly. Makes it easy to be the best. Jax's comm device buzzed. Another message from MYX. By the way, I might have accidentally told someone about your little adventure. Someone who works for a certain galactic news network. They're very interested in the story of a mysterious rogue and runaway princess who saved the galaxy and disappeared. Don't worry, I didn't give them your names or locations. But you might be legends now. Thought you should know. We're legends, Lena read over Jax's shoulder. Mysterious legends. The best kind. We should probably move, Jax said, but she didn't sound particularly concerned. Probably. In a few weeks. Yeah, in a few weeks. They finished their coffee, paid their tab, and headed back to the ship. There would be other runs, other adventures, other complications. But for now, for this moment, they had exactly what they needed. A ship that flew, a future they'd chosen, and each other. As they walked back through the streets of Paradise Reach, Lena bumped Jax's shoulder companionably. Hey, Captain. Yay. Thanks. For everything. For taking me seriously, for helping me escape, for teaching me to fly, for being, well, for being you. Right back at you, Princess. Or should I say, co-pilot. Definitely co-pilot. I'm done being a princess. Good. Because I'm not great with royalty, but I'm excellent with partners. Partners, Lena said, testing the word. I like that. Me too. The Nebula's Regret sat in the docking bay, engines cooling, making the occasional ping and creak of contracting metal. If ships could be content, this one was. It had carried its crew through danger and brought them safely to harbor. It had earned its rest, but not too much rest. Because in a few weeks, there would be another cargo run, another destination, another adventure. The galaxy was vast, full of stations and planets and people who needed things moved from one place to another. And somewhere out there, under new names and new identities, a former deserter and a former princess would keep flying. Not as heroes, not as legends, just as two people who'd found each other at exactly the right time and had decided that maybe, just maybe, they didn't want to be alone anymore. It wasn't the life either of them had planned, but it was the life they'd built together. And that was enough. The end. Sleep well, dear listener. May your dreams be filled with adventure, your rest be peaceful, and your tomorrow be exactly what you choose to make it.